Have you heard anything this week that would give you second thoughts about opposing a war against Iraq?
No, and I keep listening carefully and read everything I can get, and I see no new information. There's really nothing new, not only in the last 2 months. It's interesting that we've been talking seriously about this in 1 month, but I don't think there's anything new in the last 2 months or 2 years. And for that matter, maybe even 12 years. When Secretary Powell was before our committee, he was very clear to us that Saddam Hussein's military is very, very weak, and much weaker than it was when he was defeated 12 years ago. And that sort of goes by everybody, and they keep talking about presumptions. Maybe someday he's going to get something, and maybe someday he's going to do this, and he might build a weapon, and he is trying to get these things. So it's pretty vague accusations.
Why are so many members of Congress lining up to want to go to war?
On our side, a lot of Republicans will come to me and they'll tell me that, you know, their mail's running strongly against the war. But, you know, I just can't go against my president. And you know a lot about politics, and you know how that works, but I still have an obligation to my own beliefs, my own convictions, my promises, and to the Constitution. So I have to do my best job in defending that position. But there is a temptation to want to go along and feel good about being part of the party and not resist.
In 2002, I offered an amendment to international relations to declare war, up or down, and it was nobody voted for the war. And my argument there was, if we want to go to war and if we should go to war, the Congress should declare it. We don't go to war like we did in Vietnam and Korea, because the wars never end. And I argued the case and made the point that it would be a quagmire.
The idea is to try to help change the Middle East. Now, look, part of the reason we went into Iraq was the main reason we went into Iraq at the time was we thought he had weapons of mass destruction. It turns out he didn't, but he had the capacity to make weapons of mass destruction. But I also talked about the human suffering in Iraq, and I also talked the need to advance a freedom agenda. And so my answer to your question is that imagine a world in which Saddam Hussein was there, stirring up even more trouble in a part of the world that had so much resentment and so much hatred that people came and killed 3,000 of our citizens. You know, I've heard this theory about, you know, everything was just fine until we arrived, and you know, kind of the stir up the hornet's nest theory. It just doesn't hold water as far as I'm concerned. The terrorists attacked us and killed 3,000 of our citizens before we started the freedom agenda in the Middle East. They were. What did Iraq have to do with what?
The attack on the World Trade Center.
Nothing, except for it's part of, and nobody's ever suggested in this administration that Saddam Hussein ordered the attack. Iraq was the lesson of September 11th is take threats before they fully materialize, Ken. Nobody's ever suggested that the attacks of September the 11th were ordered by Iraq. I have suggested, however, that resentment and the lack of hope create the breeding grounds for terrorists who are willing to use suiciders to kill to achieve an objective. I have made that case. And one way to defeat that, defeat resentment, is with hope. And the best way to do hope is through a form of government.
Have you ever read about the reasons they attacked us? They attack us because we've been over there. We've been bombing Iraq for 10 years. We've been in the Middle East. I think Reagan was right. We don't understand the irrationality of Middle Eastern politics. So right now we're building an embassy in Iraq that's bigger than the Vatican. We're building 14 permanent bases. What would we say here if China was doing this in our country or in the Gulf of Mexico? We would be objecting. We need to look at what we do from the perspective of what would happen if somebody else did it to us.
Should we send hundreds of thousands of Americans to die in a civil war? I mean, are we over in Russia right now over Chechnya?
I mean, it wouldn't make any sense. Did we go to war over Hong Kong? You know, we should follow the Constitution and the advice of the founders. Don't go looking for dragons to slay. I mean, why should we go and provoke and look for trouble? We should talk to people, negotiate, be diplomatic, and trade with people. We do much better trading with Vietnam than we did with fighting with them, and we lost 60,000 men there.
So it is the policy of the United States to seek and support the growth of democratic movements and institutions in every nation and culture with the ultimate goal of ending tyranny in our world.
This is a philosophic and foreign policy problem, because what the president was saying was just a continuation of Woodrow Wilson's making the world safe for democracy. There's nothing wrong with spreading our values around the world, but it is wrong to spread it by force. We should spread it by setting an example and doing a good job here. Threatening Pakistan and threatening Iran makes no sense whatsoever. We went in, and I supported going after the Al-Qaeda into Afghanistan, but lo and behold, the neocons took over. They forgot about Osama bin Laden, and what they did, they went into nation building not only in Afghanistan, they went unjustifiably over into Iraq, and that's why we're in this mess.
Mayor Giuliani, both Governor Huckabee. Excuse me. Excuse me.
Too often the American people won't see it in that light. We are good and wonderful and perfect, and we are only going to deliver our goodness to them. We have two suggestions to the people that we try to do so much good. We go over and we tell them, you do it our way or we're going to bomb you. And then if they do it our way, we subsidize them. What about the alternative of neither bombing nor subsidizing and trying to get along with people and talking to people and trading with people?